Triple the pay. That's why I'm here. My degree in business administration might land me a desk job drowning in spreadsheets for 50 grand a year. This? Guarding Town Memorial pays 3 times that. Easy money, they said. Quiet nights, they promised. My friends think I'm morbid. My family worries. They don't get it. After years of grinding for scraps, I feel like I've earned this silent, lucrative peace. My gear's simple, a battery-guzzling flashlight, a worn baton that feels like a toy, and a uniform the color of stale mustard. My predecessor, Derek, clocked out just as I arrived. He's pushing 70, maybe older, moving with the stiff caution of someone who's seen too many winters and too many nights here. His eyes, pale and washed out, scanned the sinking sun before landing on me. Shift starts now, he grunted, voice like gravel underfoot. Rule 1, you don't interact. Mourners, visitors, they do their business, you do yours. See nothing, hear nothing. Just walk the paths. He paused, his gaze drifting towards the massive, ancient banyan tree dominating the lower slope. Especially down there. Just walk. With a final, unreadable look, he shuffled towards the gate, leaving me alone as the daylight bled away. The guard station sits atop the central hill, offering a panoramic view. By day, town is almost picturesque rolling slopes, dotted with weathered stones, and marble angels catching the light. By night, it transforms. Darkness swallows the hillside whole. Sparse, aging streetlights cast feeble, disconnected islands of jaundiced yellow on the paths, making the shadows between them feel thicker, hungrier. My plan to nap dissolved instantly, replaced by a low thrum of anxiety in my chest. Patrols are mandatory. Twice a night. One before 3 a.m., one after. The route snakes down crumbling stone stairs to the banyan tree, then loops around the base of the hill to the older, neglected section on the far side. A 10-minute walk, max. It felt like a death march that first night. Tonight was no better. As I started down the stairs, flanked by silent ranks of granite and marble, the beam of my flashlight felt pathetically small. Angels wept stone tears. Cherubs stared with vacant eyes. Crosses cast long, distorted shadows that seemed to twitch at the edge of the light. Every step crunched unnaturally loud on the gravel. Every flicker in the darkness made my breath hitch. My brain, a traitor in the silence, conjured horrors in every gap between the tombstones. That's all it is, I told myself. Just the brain filling voids. But the conviction felt thin. The banyan tree loomed ahead, a monstrous tangle of roots and branches that swallowed the light. Its presence always dragged up the memory, sharp and cold, New Year's Eve years ago. Midnight fireworks exploding like cannon fire, illuminating the night in staccato bursts. Laughing, running forbidden through the graves with friends. Then the next blinding flash, the ragged shape swinging from the banyan's thick limb. An old woman in a nightdress, turning slowly. Our screams swallowed by the next explosion. The frantic run for adults, met only with furious scolding, never go into the graveyard after midnight. And we never heard about them finding her either. A cold sweat broke out on my neck. As if summoned by the memory, the streetlight near the tree's base flickered erratically. I forced my feet forward, aiming the light towards the cluster of older graves huddled in the tree's oppressive shadow. That's when I heard it. Sobbing. Soft, broken, utterly wretched. A woman's cries. I froze, heart hammering against my ribs. The sound seemed to come from just beyond the nearest row of headstones. I swept the flashlight beam. Nothing. The sobbing hitched, then seemed to drift behind me, further up the path I'd just come down. I spun, light slicing through the gloom. Empty stairs, empty graves. The sound wept again, now seemingly to my left, near a moss-covered obelisk. See nothing? Hear nothing? Derek's words echoed uselessly. Panic started a low buzz in my ears. My job was to patrol, to walk. Teeth clenched, I pushed forward towards the banyan, the source of my childhood nightmare and the apparent epicenter of this spectral grief. My light finally pierced the deepest shadows under the tree's canopy. And there she was, kneeling before a weather-stained granite slab, her back to me. Long, white hair spilled over the shoulders of a thin, pale nightgown. Her frame shuddered with each silent sob I could no longer hear. The tombstone she faced was clearly visible in my trembling beam: Melissa Blunt, beloved grandmother, 1958 to 2001. Air fled my lungs. I tried to speak, to utter some semblance of professional inquiry, ma'am. The cemetery is closed, but my throat seized, producing only a dry click. This was wrong. So profoundly wrong. The silence around her was absolute, thick as the grave dirt itself. Then the sobbing started again. Not from the figure, from directly behind me, close enough to feel the phantom breath on my neck. Pure, animal terror detonated in my skull. I didn't think. I ran. I scrambled back up the stairs, flashlight beam jolting wildly, illuminating fleeting glimpses of leering stone faces. I didn't look back. I burst into the guard station, slammed the door, and locked it, my back pressed against the cool plexiglass as I gasped for air. Logic tried to reassert itself. Stress, hallucination. Overactive imagination fueled by the memory in the dark. I fumbled for my phone, fingers numb, pulling up mindless videos, puppies, kittens, anything bright and alive and normal. The frantic rhythm of my heart began to slow, the buzz in my ears fading slightly. Maybe Derek was right. See nothing. Hear nothing. Just get through the shift. I still had the second patrol, but that could wait. God, it could wait forever. Tap. 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 The sound was soft, polite almost, on the fogging plexiglass window of the station door. I jerked my head up. Outside, haloed by the weak station light, stood a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 10 or 11. Her skin was unnaturally pale, like porcelain under moonlight. Her eyes were large, dark, and utterly depthless. She wore a simple, clean dress. There was no visible sign of harm, no overt menace, just a profound, unsettling stillness. She raised a small, pale hand and tapped the glass again. Tap. Tap. Swallowing the lump of ice in my throat, I forced myself to slide open the visitor log slot. Yes, yes. Can I help you? My voice sounded strangled. The girl stared at me, her expression blank. When she spoke, her voice was a flat, emotionless monotone, devoid of the sobbing's anguish but chilling in its certainty. I am coming to visit a family member. A small, cold hand gestured vaguely towards the lower slopes, towards the banyan tree. Please write it down. She paused, those dark eyes fixing on mine. My name is Melissa Blunt. The pen felt like frozen lead in my hand. The logbook page blurred. I heard Derek's gravelly voice, thick with unspoken dread. You don't interact. But she was waiting. Pale. Still. Her name hanging in the cold night air like a tombstone inscription. Melissa Blunt. Deciding not to write down the name, I realized I still have to patrol the other side before 3.
I went to a strange summer camp as a child. I think something awful happened there. I'm a college grad who moved back to my hometown. Recently, I got coffee with an old friend, who I'll call S, paid for with the coupon perks graciously provided by my internship with the local historic society. We've been doing this recently, meeting downtown to catch up and swap stories about our childhoods here. My main job consists of digitizing tapes from the town's archive and cataloging them, cross-referencing with newspapers and local residents if they're still alive. Recently, I discovered a tape. I've been trying to make a timeline of my own history here too. School field trips, bonfires, swim lessons. It gets fuzzy around the edges every time I concentrate on any one memory for too long, like someone is gently sweeping the curtains closed. I do my best to give my full attention to S when she speaks, committing her words to memory. I can always write notes later. Sometimes I worry she thinks I started talking to her again just to get the answers I want. Granted, that is why I reached out to her in the first place, but it has also been a generally pleasant time, external circumstances and investigations aside. So we sat, sipping our drinks. a lull in the conversation. Around us, a few other customers tapped on keyboards or chatted in small clusters. Finally, I asked, "Do you remember summer camp?" Her eyes lit up at this. She took a long gulp of her latte before setting it down. "Which part?" "I don't know. All of it, I guess." S squinted and looked down her nose at me, head tilted. She made that face at me a lot when we were kids. Usually when I was saying something sort of dumb or strange, or when I was attempting to lie, which is admittedly not one of my strong suits. "Did Graves put you up to this?" "No. I hadn't even told my boss I'd been speaking to S recently. I just wanted to know what happened, get answers, too pushy, reminisce." S raised an eyebrow but seemed to accept this. "Remember the crawl?" S said, laughing. "That was hardcore." I did. At Camp Gloaming, every camper was required to be a proficient swimmer before we could participate in any other lake activities. The crawl was the ultimate test. It was a badge of honor and the source of my absolute dread. In the early hours of the morning, after the counselors herded us onto the docks in pods of 5, we dove in. Our counselor assured us with a toothy grin he'd be on guard in case anything went wrong. This did little to assuage my anxiety. He blew the whistle, and the trial began. I don't remember how far we swam. It felt like miles. It felt like forever. I am not a strong swimmer even now. Back then, I was abysmal. No matter how many hours I put into practicing alongside my cabin mates, they always seemed leagues ahead. At some point, I switched to the side stroke, but even that became difficult to maintain as my arms grew steadily exhausted. I was sure that any minute now my muscles would give out and I would sink like a stone. When I thrust my head back to the shore, either to call for help or to orient myself, I found that I could not see the docks. I did see a distant stretch of sand, tinted gray in the soft morning light. It was deserted. I looked forward again and saw only the flat, empty waters of Lake Abel, stretching out into the fog, still and silent as ever. I couldn't see S or the other 3 kids on our team. Were they really so far ahead? I craned my neck, treading water, trying to spot the tops of heads bobbing in the distance. Nothing. Panic wrapped itself around me in thick coils. I was losing strength with every kick. If nothing else, I had to keep my mouth and nose above water. Something closed around my left ankle. Its cold, firm grip held me in place like an anchor, yet it was strangely soft to the touch. It felt like fingers. As it pulled me under, I gulped in water without meaning to, cold and harsh against my throat, and I was drowning. For a terrible, endless moment, my world was going dark. A fuzzy blackness closed in on the edges of my vision. I wondered distantly if I was going to die here in silence, failing my swim exam. I thrashed once, twice, until finally I kicked free. The fingers loosened their grip, though I felt nails biting into my skin hard enough to leave marks. I rose to the surface, my lungs burning, my body full of icy water. I remember screaming something. I think it might have been S's name. Either way, she was the one who I saw paddling back towards me from out of the fog. She was the one who scooped her hands under my arms, kicking her feet to hold us both aloft until I could take in deep breaths of air again. Recounting this, S winced. "Damn, I totally forgot how traumatizing that was for you. I shouldn't have led with that one." I said it was fine. Remembering was good. This was a good thing. "Wait, what was the deal with you getting grabbed?" I froze. Some kid playing a prank, probably. Oh my God, yeah. I think it was that kid Kane. He was such a jerk back then. That we could agree on. Anyways, so I'm taking a gap year to focus on myself before I head to grad school. And you've got this whole archivist thing going. Look at us. I could tell S wanted to change the subject, so I obliged, nodding along and giving my usual spiel about the Historic Society. "It seems like you're really passionate about this project," she said. "I am," I found myself responding. To my surprise, I meant it. Ever since I unlocked that dusty storage closet in the back of the town hall offices and digitized the first tape, this job has felt more like an undertaking. It was work that needed doing. I hadn't considered until now that I truly enjoyed being the one to do it. It's easier for me to talk with S than with other people. It's nice. For whatever reason, my mind feels quieter around her. More whole. I can almost imagine that we're back in school. For a moment, she's in her Golden Rams track uniform chatting away about her personal best, and I'm in my old baggy sweatshirt and torn jeans, a sticker-plastered sketchbook on my lap, a silenced demon on my shoulder, and nothing has changed. I dreamed about the crawl last night. I was treading water there in the middle of a vast, placid lake, struggling to breathe. There were many hands, gripping my limbs like vices, dragging me down until my lungs compacted. This time, S wasn't there.